Welcome back, everyone, to the Mad Genius Thesis. We always love to unpack that fascinating and sometimes tricky link between creativity and mental illness.
Yeah.
This time, we're diving into the world of Robin Williams.
Oh man, Robin Williams, a man who could just make us laugh until we cried. But at the same time, his personal life, it was marked by just some really profound struggles.
Yeah.
It just makes you wonder, was his comedic genius, was it somehow connected to, his inner turmoil?
Yeah, I mean, to really, get into this, we're going to be spending some time with Dave Itzkoff's biography, Robin.
Okay.
And right away, Itzkoff really paints a picture of Robin's childhood, and I think it holds some key clues.
Yeah.
He talks about how Robin, even as a young boy, would entertain his mom by, mimicking his father's really kind of stern demeanor. He even had these grand, almost theatrical nicknames for his dad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like Lord Stokesbury, Viceroy to India, or the Pasha.
Oh.
So, I mean, when you read that, what does that say to you?
Well, I think it reveals this kind of, distance in their relationship, almost like he was observing his father from afar and using humor to bridge that gap,
Oh, totally.
which is really interesting.
It's like he learned early on that humor could be this, powerful tool to navigate these, complex emotions,
Right.
particularly within family dynamics.
Yeah.
I mean, and speaking of family dynamics, I don't think you can really talk about Robin Williams without talking about his mother, Lori.
Right.
I mean, by all accounts, she just really embraced life with this vibrant sense of humor, and it clearly rubbed off on Robin.
Absolutely. And Itzkoff actually quotes Robin as saying, "My mother was funny with me and I started to be charming and funny for her." It's interesting, though, because while Laurie's humor was, warm and engaging, Robin's often took on this more chaotic energy, almost frenetic.
Yeah.
Like some of his comedic idols, like Jonathan Winters.
Ah, interesting. So we're seeing this blend of influences,
Yeah.
right? This desire to connect with his mom through humor,
Yeah.
but also this attraction to this unpredictable, almost explosive style of, comedians like Winters.
Yeah.
Does that suggest to you that his comedic style was more nature or nurture?
Well, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's got to be a combination of both. He obviously inherited that comedic sensibility from his mother,
Yeah.
but then he took it to another level, almost like he needed to push those boundaries further.
Yeah.
Use humor not just to connect, but also to control,
Your control.
to command attention.
Yeah. I think Itzkoff really highlights that desire for control in another anecdote about Robin's experience at Juilliard.
Okay.
He excelled in movement and voice classes, but he felt very stifled by the rigidity of that classical acting program.
I see.
He really found his outlet in improv and character work where he could unleash that creativity and tap into that seemingly limitless energy.
So Juilliard, it sounds like, was kind of a pivotal point for him,
Totally.
where he embraced spontaneity and really honed that ability to think on his feet. Yeah.
Which would later become, the hallmarks of his comedic style.
It's like he didn't just want to deliver lines.
Right.
He wanted to create. He wanted to surprise. He wanted to keep the audience and maybe even himself on edge.
On edge.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like he was seeking that rush of the unexpected.
Yeah.
Both for himself and for the audience.
Right.
Even Itzkoff describes how he would deviate from scripts during those early TV and film roles, much to the frustration of some writers and directors.
Really?
Yeah, he couldn't stick to the plan.
Yeah.
He had to improvise. He had to riff. He had to just push the boundaries of what was expected.
And that need to push the boundaries that led him to the San Francisco comedy scene.
Oh, yeah.
A place known for its really freewheeling, anything-goes atmosphere.
Totally.
And Itzkoff notes, this is where Robin really came alive.
Yeah.
Honing his improvisational skills and developing that really rapid-fire stream of consciousness style that would become his trademark.
Totally. It's like he found his tribe.
A place where this boundless energy and quick wit were not only accepted but celebrated.
Yeah.
But even as he's finding this success and carving out his comedic niche, there are these hints of something darker, lurking beneath the surface.
Oh, yeah.
Itzkoff talks about Robin's early struggles with substance abuse, almost as if he was trying to keep pace with that frenetic energy,
Right.
that need to always be on.
That's a crucial point because it's like the same energy that fueled his comedic brilliance was also a force that he struggled to control.
Yeah.
Leading him to seek outlets that could match its intensity.
I see. So we have this picture of young Robin Williams, shaped by these family dynamics, drawn to this chaotic humor, and then honing his skills, in the crucible of the San Francisco comedy scene.
Yeah.
But beneath the surface, there are these hints of inner turmoil, this struggle to manage the same energy that makes him so captivating. And that's what makes this next chapter of his story so interesting. The moment he explodes onto the national stage with Mork and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy. So, before we went to commercial, we were talking about that early career and how Mork and Mindy, that breakout role, catapulted him to this whole new level of fame.
Yeah.
But Itzkoff kind of suggests that the sudden stardom wasn't entirely a blessing.
Yeah, Itzkoff argues that the lines between Robin and Mork started to blur.
Right.
The public expected him to be, that zany, energetic alien character all the time.
Yeah.
Which had to be incredibly exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine that pressure to constantly be, to live up to this larger-than-life persona.
Yeah, and it must have been incredibly difficult to maintain that level of manic energy, both on screen and off.
Right.
And it's during this period that Itzkoff starts to delve deeper into Robin's personal struggles.
Yeah.
Particularly his substance abuse.
Right.
It seems like he was trying to cope with the pressure of fame.
Yeah.
But also maybe trying to keep pace with this internal engine that always seemed to be running at full speed.
That's interesting because even as he's battling these personal demons, he's also pushing himself creatively.
Yeah.
Itzkoff talks about how Robin starts seeking out these roles that challenged his comedic image, like the bomb-making mastermind in The Secret Agent or the troubled Perry in The Fisher King.
Yeah, it seems like he was trying to prove that he was more than just the funny guy.
Right.
That he had the depth and range to tackle these more serious, dramatic roles.
Yeah.
But, I mean, was this purely an artistic decision, or was it also a way to kind of distance himself from that manic persona that had become so closely associated with him?
I think it was likely a combination of both. I mean, he was a brilliant comedic actor, but he was also this complex human being who wanted to explore, the full spectrum of his talents. And maybe in a way, playing those darker, more troubled characters allowed him to tap into, some of his own inner struggles, to channel them into his art.
Itzkoff definitely suggests that there was a darkness lurking beneath the surface.
Right.
Even during his most successful comedic periods.
Right.
He talks about Robin's fear that the muse would leave him this constant anxiety that the well of creativity would run dry.
And that anxiety, it seems like it was compounded by personal losses and setbacks.
Yeah.
Itzkoff details the impact of his mother's passing, his divorce from Valerie Velarde, and his ongoing struggles with addiction.
Yeah.
It's almost as if those difficult experiences kind of fueled his creative drive.
Yeah.
Pushing him to work even harder to seek solace in the act of making others laugh.
It makes me think of that quote, "Humor is the mistress of sorrow." Was comedy for Robin a way to conquer his demons or just to coexist with them, to keep them at bay with laughter?
That's a question that continues to resonate with fans and critics alike.
Yeah.
Itzkoff provides a compelling case that there's a direct link between Robin's personal struggles and his creative output. But whether one fueled the other or whether they existed in this more complex, intertwined relationship is something that we may never fully understand.
Itzkoff does a great job of presenting both sides of the argument, giving us enough detail to draw our own conclusions.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those later years, particularly the period after Mork and Mindy, where he seems to be intentionally seeking out roles that challenge expectations?
Well, one thing that stands out is his Oscar-winning performance in Good Will Hunting.
Oh, yeah.
It's a role that showcases both his comedic timing and his dramatic depth.
Yeah.
He's not just cracking jokes. He's offering profound insights,
Right.
challenging Matt Damon's character to confront his own demons.
It's a great example of how he was able to bridge those two worlds, the comedic and the dramatic.
Right.
And Itzkoff doesn't shy away from the fact that even as he was achieving critical acclaim for his more serious roles,
Right.
Robin continued to return to stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
It was almost like he needed that direct connection with an audience.
Yeah.
That immediate feedback loop of laughter and applause.
It's as if stand-up was his home base. The place where he could be his most authentic self.
Yeah.
Even if that self was often chaotic, unpredictable, and a little bit dark.
Itzkoff even suggests that performing stand-up was therapeutic for Robin.
Yeah.
A way to process his emotions,
Yeah.
to confront his fears,
Yeah.
and to ultimately find some kind of catharsis through laughter.
Right. And you can see that in his routines. The way he would riff on current events, on personal experiences, on the absurdity of life itself.
Yeah.
It was like he was using humor to make sense of the world,
Yeah.
to find the light in the darkness.
It's a fascinating and ultimately tragic story.
Yeah.
This incredibly talented man, driven by a force he didn't always understand, using humor to connect with others, to heal himself, and maybe even to escape from the demons that haunted him.
And that brings us to that final chapter of his life,
Yeah.
a chapter that is both heartbreaking and illuminating.
Itzkoff handles this section with incredible sensitivity,
Yes.
acknowledging the tragic circumstances of Robin's death,
Yeah.
while also celebrating his enduring legacy.
And he reminds us that even though Robin is gone,
Yeah.
his work, his spirit, and his unique brand of genius, they continue to inspire and entertain us.
What stands out to you as we reflect on those final years?
Yeah, those final years. I think it's important to remember we've been exploring Robin Williams's life and career, this force of nature in the comedy world, and, phenomenal success, but still he's wrestling with these inner demons.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that, even those who seem to radiate joy can be battling, their own darkness.
Absolutely.
And, Itzkoff doesn't shy away from the tough stuff.
Right.
The substance abuse, the failed relationships, the periods of deep depression.
Yeah.
But he also, he paints this picture of a man who deeply loved his family, was incredibly generous to friends and colleagues.
Right.
And just had this profound compassion for those less fortunate.
Yeah, it's that complexity that makes him so fascinating to study, right?
Absolutely.
It's not this simple equation of, troubled past equals comedic genius.
Right.
So much more nuanced.
It really is. There are so many layers to who he was.
Yeah, and it makes me think about something you touched on earlier about, stand-up comedy being this lifeline for Robin.
Yeah.
Itzkoff mentions that even as he was gaining all this recognition for those dramatic roles,
Right.
Robin continued to return to the stage, often unannounced at these smaller comedy clubs.
It's like he needed that raw, immediate connection with an audience,
Yeah.
to feel that energy of the laughter, to
Yeah.
test out new material,
Yeah.
almost recharge himself, through the act of performing.
And what's so fascinating is that for Robin, stand-up wasn't just about delivering jokes.
Right.
It was about connecting.
Yeah.
It was about processing his own experiences,
Yeah.
finding humor in the darkest of places.
Itzkoff quotes him as saying, "You're only given a little spark of madness. You mustn't lose it."
I love that quote.
Yeah.
It really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it?
It does.
It's like he saw this comedic energy, this spark of madness, as something so precious.
Yeah.
Something to be nurtured, even if it came with a cost.
And it makes you wonder, was that spark a source of both his brilliance and his torment?
Right.
Did he feel like he had to keep pushing those boundaries, keep the energy flowing to kind of stay ahead of that darkness?
It's a question that lingers long after finishing Itzkoff's book.
It really does.
And it brings us back to the core question of our deep dive.
Yeah.
Was Robin Williams' comedic genius a product of his inner struggles? Or was it a separate gift he used to navigate them?
Yeah, I don't think there's an easy answer.
Right.
But, exploring his life, his work, his own reflections on what drove him,
Yeah.
I think we gain a deeper understanding of the complex relationship between creativity and mental health.
And maybe that's the most important takeaway for our listeners.
Absolutely.
There's no, one-size-fits-all explanation for genius.
Right.
There's no formula for success, and certainly no easy way to separate the light from the shadow.
Robin Williams' story encourages us to appreciate the complexities of the human experience,
Yeah.
to recognize that even those who bring us immense joy may be fighting their own battles behind the scenes.
It's a reminder to be kind, to be compassionate, and to never underestimate the power of laughter.
Absolutely.
Both to heal and to connect us.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I
Yeah.
think it's time to wrap up this episode of the Mad Genius Thesis.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground today exploring the life and work of one of the most iconic comedic talents of our time.
Yeah.
We've delved into his childhood, his rise to fame, his struggles, and his triumphs, searching for clues to that enduring question
Right.
of whether his comedic genius was somehow fueled by his inner turmoil.
We've examined the evidence, we've considered multiple perspectives,
Absolutely.
and hopefully sparked some thought-provoking discussions along the way.
Yes, and now it's your turn, listeners, to kind of connect the dots. Was Robin Williams' brilliance a product of his struggles or a separate gift he used to navigate them? Share your thoughts, continue the conversation, and join us next time as we explore another fascinating case study on the Mad Genius Thesis.